There we go. And I want to thank everybody very much for participating in this, the 5th workshop that we're holding for the Beaver Valley Corridor. You should be seeing the screen that I'm sharing. We love that we get to meet online. It opens up lots and lots of opportunities for people to join the meeting. You don't have to drive to nighttime or daytime meetings. You don't have to arrange for babysitters. You can call in from the comfort of your own home. Over the past 14 months, we've had tremendous turnout to our online meetings. And last week, we had fantastic turnout to the sessions for the Beaver Valley Corridor Visioning exercise. We are really looking forward to hearing your hopes and aspirations for the Beaver Valley Corridor. We're going to look at the corridor that stretches 40 kilometers in length and let everybody know that this is just the tiny first step of the municipality to set some broad overarching direction for the vast area. So this is not the end of the conversation. My name is Donna Hind. I'm going to just take a pause and ask everyone to mute your mics or mute your phone if you're phoning in. My name's Donna Hind. I'm a landscape architect by training and a partner in the planning partnership. We've been asked to help the municipality with this first step in the process of planning for the Beaver Valley Corridor. So I'm just going to pause for a minute. So I have 2 people that have phoned in and I need you to mute your phones. On the call is my business partner, Ying DeGiorgio, and she's just going to raise her hand. And Robin Chubb, an associate at the Planning Partnership, he's going to raise his hand. Both are landscape architects and designers. So I want you to give me 10 minutes to set the context of what we've learned so far. We've organized the conversation then at the end around 4 questions that have to do with getting your input and thoughts on trends that you've observed in the Beaver Valley Corridor over the last several years. We want to understand how the corridor relates to other tourism recreation areas in Ontario. We want to understand your views on opportunities and then words and phrases that we can capture in a vision statement, and we'll explain what that means when we get to that point. Lots and lots of people are on the call. We've got 50 now, so please be respectful of others and leave time for them. Today isn't the forum to read from prepared notes, but absolutely send those prepared notes into the municipality. They are collecting everything they receive. They're going to send it off to us, and we'll summarize it and make sure it's becomes part of the document that we're preparing. Along the way, we've got 4 polls to ask you, just so everybody can understand who is on the call. So maybe, Robin, I want to start by you asking the first poll. So you can see on the screen that we're just asking you, I live closest to, and let us know where that is. And we just want to understand the kind of distribution of where people are joining us from today. Let's just give it a couple more seconds. Okay, I think that's great. Robin, if you can end the poll and just flash up the results. And so most of you are joining us from Kimberley, terrific, but we've also got people from Eugenia and Maxwell, Flesherton, Markdale, and some that live outside of Grey Highlands. So thank you very much for that. So Robin, we can get rid of that. And I can close that, and I will share my screen again. So here we go. A little bit to start with on the regional context. The Beaver Valley is nestled along the Niagara Escarpment. As I'm sure everybody on this call knows, the Niagara Escarpment is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, and it's only one of 18 in all of Canada. We've done a lot of work along the Niagara Escarpment, especially in Niagara, so we certainly understand the significance of this feature. So it's outlined in red along the entire corridor. The area that we're focusing on today is outlined in red, goes from north of Epping, where my cursor is, to just north of Flesherton. It's 40 kilometers, and it's over 11,000 hectares of land. So today we're focusing, like I said, the entire 11,400 hectares. I wanted to share a little bit about what we learned from the pre-workshop survey we did. I believe it was the week before last. We had about 140 people respond, and we asked a really super simple question. We asked, what words or phrases best describe the Beaver Valley corridor to you? We looked at all the words and phrases that we got, and we clumped them into 6 common themes. And on the screen is a sample of the words and phrases under each one of the themes. So we grouped a bundle of words under anything that had to do with nature or the environment. Then we grouped a bundle of words around recreation, then character and amenity, and again, a snapshot of some of the words that we received. Then lots of people commented on what we thought was topics about management of the corridor, economic development, and then the social and the cultural attributes of the corridor. Then we took all those words and phrases and created a word cloud, which pulls out the most commonly used words or phrases, and the size of the font reflects how often those words were used in the responses. So first glance, you can see beautiful, natural, green, protect, outdoor, active living, heritage. And so for us, it's a really interesting graphic right from the get-go for us to get our heads wrapped around these conversations. And we used those themes to prepare some mapping to set the context for the discussions. I'm going to walk through that mapping swiftly to leave as much time as we can for the conversation. So I'm going to start with this one. And I've said at the other meetings how I love this map, because I've also come at this as a geographer, and I love seeing how clear the topography is represented. The top of the slope outlined with this red line. And on this map, you're looking at a solid black line, which is the scope of the Beaver Valley visioning exercise. The hamlets, the village, the towns dot the landscape along the valley, and in between, breathtaking views across the valley. And that is certainly something that we heard when we asked the question, what words or phrases describe the Beaver Valley to you? The corridor is rich with significant woodlands, and the word significant is not our word. It's a word that's used by the Ministry of Natural Resources, identifying exactly what it says, those areas that have significant forest cover. There's wetlands, again, not our word, provincially significant, but means exactly what it says. The teal blue, provincially significant wetlands, and then the darker teal blue are other wetlands. So immediately we are struck by the extent of natural features. There are also areas of natural and scientific interest which identify specific geographies as having particular special natural features. So within our boundaries, the Beaver Valley lowlands, the karst and the sinkholes, the Kimberley Creek, the Upper Beaver Valley, and then you can also see how many areas of natural and scientific interest exist in the immediate context of our focus area. And I will say that this slide deck and of course the recordings will all be posted on the project webpage next week. All of those natural heritage features come together in the county's official plan where they talk about the natural heritage system. And so the natural heritage system in lime green are the core elements of that system. It usually relates to woodlands and wetlands. And then the forest green are links, and they sometimes don't exist on the ground, but it's an intent or an ambition to connect the core areas of the system together. We know that there are lots of points of interest in the corridor, and they range from places you can put a canoe or kayak in the water to lookouts, to the skiing at Beaver Valley, to conservation areas and parks that are dotted across the corridor from north to south. We have heard a lot about the trails for walking and cycling and sometimes snowmobiling. It's part of the 900-kilometer Bruce Trail that stretches from Queenston in Niagara all the way to Tobermory. We know that there's a number of agencies and authorities that manage land in the Beaver Valley. So there are 4 conservation authorities, managing land in and around the valley. So 4 conservation authorities. So Nottawasaga is this kind of teal blue. Saugeen is this kind of limey green. There's Gray Sauble. There's also, there's 3 conservation authorities, sorry. And then the Gray County manages a number of areas of forest. And we know that the Ministry of Natural Resources also owns land in this area, and we're in the process of collecting that information and mapping that as well. As I'm sure everybody on the call knows that the corridor is within the Niagara Escarpment Plan. So here's the boundaries of our visioning areas. The entire area is in the Niagara Escarpment Plan. The commission is mandated to maintain and enhance the vitality of the escarpment's unique environmental and landscape features. And it provides guidance also for development and use to make sure it protects and upholds the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve designation. It is Canada's first large-scale environmental land use plan, which provides protection for the area. And it's also one of the most rigorous and stringent pieces of legislation, environmental legislation, there is in Ontario. So this sets out the various designations in the Niagara Escarpment Plan, and it also summarizes what their vision and mandate is. So you can see the range of designations within the corridor. Bruce Trail has a fantastic management plan and has established a vision and mission. And we've certainly heard in the past 4 sessions we had last week that many, many people participate in the management and stewardship of the Bruce Trail through this area. The municipality prepared a strategic plan, and it's in place for the period from 2019 to 2013. It has a vision to be Canada's most inspired and well-managed rural community. They want to demonstrate leadership in lifestyle, in the environment, in economy, and governance. The plan sets a number of priorities, and we've pulled out just some that are most relevant to this exercise. And so some of those priorities include priorities for attainable housing, for protecting cultural heritage, for active living, for giving priority to stewardship of natural features, to address workforce and transportation issues, and to actively pursue tourism development. With that, I just want to launch 2 more a polling question. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and ask Robin to launch the second poll. And so I want to understand if you're living here full-time, year-round, seasonal. Again, it just helps everybody understand who they're talking to. So just give it a few seconds. And this will all become a part of the record of the meeting. And then I think, Robin, we can close that poll. Just have a quick look. And so we've got almost 70% living here full-time year-round and just a little over 30% seasonal. So thank you for that. And then the third poll, Robin. Just end that. And the third poll. So now I just want to understand your connection to Grey Highlands. So a relatively new resident living here less than 7 years, first generation more than 7 years, and in particular, if you have multi-generational history in Grey Highlands. Okay, so let's end that one and just see what we have. So that's interesting. So it's a kind of 30-30-30 split. So a good distribution of a great cross-section of relative newcomers, people that have been here for more than 7 years, and then those that have a multi-generational history in Grey Highlands. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that. So I will get out of that. And now I want to end that. That's the end of the presentation that we have organized for today. And now we're going to switch to conversation. And the way that I'm organizing the conversation is I go down through my list of participants. They're organized by first name. And I'm going to call you up and get you queued up in groups of 3. You don't have to turn your mic camera on. If I don't see your mic coming on, I'll go to the next person. I'm not actively monitoring the chat box, but it becomes absolutely part of the record of the meeting. And Wai Ying is having a look at it. And if there's anything in there that she thinks the whole group should hear, we'll take a pause and have a listen. But generally, we'll make sure we're summarized from the chat box when we summarize what we've heard. So the first one, let me pull up my screen again and just start with that first question. And I want to understand from everybody on the call, over the past few years, what trends have you seen in the Beaver Valley corridor? And you can talk to us about trends in any topic you want: recreation, tourism, traffic, parking, trails, infrastructure, whatever is important and top of mind to you. I am going to go through my list. I'll ask people to mute their phones until you hear your name called out, just again, so we don't have a lot of background on the call. So on my list, I have a phone number that I'm going to start with, and it ends in 7284. And then I'm going to get Jenny queued up and Marlene queued up. So I'll wait for a second and hear if the person phoning in wants to talk to us about trends.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hi, I'm the person on 7284. My name is Marina Bennett. So I'm also showing up as a person, but I don't have the sufficient Wi-Fi to get the camera.
Okay.
That's not you. You're
okay,
there.
Go ahead, Marina. Do you have anything you want to share with us about trends you have observed in the Beaver Valley over the past couple of years?
No, I am unable to say anything about trends. I haven't noticed anything significant trending in any of those. I live in Red Wing, and I do a lot of cycling around the area, but on the outskirts of the Beaver Valley. So presently I can't really talk about trends.
Okay, let's leave it for that. We've got 3 other questions and lots of chance to share and other ideas. So maybe I will ask you to mute your phone in the meantime so we don't get the background. And then Marlene, I think you've got your mic on.
I think, can you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Oh, good. And what was the question? I was so busy
So
getting-
I'm interested to understand your thoughts on trends that you've noticed in the Beaver Valley over the past few years. Those trends can be recreation or tourism or things to do with roads or parking, anything at all. So trends, anything that you want to share with the group. Marlene?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you saying Jenny?
No, Marlene first, and
Oh,
then I'm
I'm
going to go
sorry,
to
okay.
Jenny. Marlene? I'm not hearing anything from Marlene, so maybe we lost the audio. These are things we learn on the online meetings. Okay, so Jenny, you go ahead. What do you want to share with us? Jenny, can you hear me?
Yeah, so you're talking to me at this point,
Yes,
right?
Jenny, go ahead. Yeah, you
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, I'm just maneuvering my way around all of these different faces and so on. So I kind of got a little bit lost. No, I'm a very long time Beaver Valley resident. My
Yep.
parents bought a farmhouse back when I was 12, and I own a house now on Lake Eugenia, and my family has the farmhouse and another property down Campbell's Lane from there, and certainly with the growth of the Bruce Trail organization, we've had a lot of real a positive sense of where the valley was going in terms of its priorities. But more recently, I would say, because we're right on the lane, we have seen an influx of snowmobiles and ATVs and
Okay.
just a huge amount of traffic. I guess it's on people's GPSs now because it's not it's not a winter maintained road, but people still use it even in the winter. It's a crazy situation.
And what are the implications of that on you, Jenny? What are the implications of the snowmobiles and
The
AT?
implications of that, I think, for anyone who uses that route, I think it's extraordinarily dangerous because there are people who are tobogganing, there are people
Okay.
who are on foot. The Bruce Trail begins, has a trailhead there.
Okay.
There are people coming in both directions. There were even people snowboarding there this year.
Okay.
And it's a very steep and wonderfully windy hill, and the Snowmobile Association has really claimed it over the last probably 15 years, I guess, as a snowmobile terrain, but now there are ATVs as well. So I do think
Okay.
it's something that is, you cannot understate the danger of it, or you cannot
Okay.
understate rather the danger of it, because it's an accident waiting to happen. There are just so many different people and different users. So that's
Okay.
one thing that I'm definitely seeing. I
I'm-
think that this year, particularly, there's been an enormous growth of interest in the area, and prices have shot up, and there's a real incentive to develop, to make developments where there are lots of properties that are well, I mean,
Okay.
this Talisman project, and I think in this moment, it must be very tempting to do that because there's I can hear the cash register, but in the long run, to do that just seems to me so counterproductive, because we lose all the things that we really were attracted to in the first place: the wildness, the wildlife corridors, the sense of serenity, and I think.
Okay.
There's one other
That's,
thing, if you don't mind, and
yep,
and
just
I think that is that it's
another,
really about what I don't understand, and maybe, and I missed a little bit of your introduction, but I'm not sure whether the Niagara Escarpment so far has been really very protective of the area, and I'm not sure where this project falls within their kind of purview.
I thought you would leave with the dog.
Okay, so we did have that, I did have that slide that I did show that showed the whole area is within the Niagara Escarpment plan. And so there are various designations in that plan that apply to the entire area. So it's wholly within the Niagara Escarpment Commission.
Okay.
Thanks for that,
Thank you.
Jenny. That's really
Thank you for
helpful.
the opportunity to get that out there.
Okay.
Right. Are you still able to hear Marlene, or?
Yeah, there you go, Marlene. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I don't seem to have my picture there, but I bought the old Smoky property.
Okay.
A number of and we have a place there as well.
So Marlene, I need you to stay close to your computer or whatever you're joining from, because your voice is fading.
Okay.
There you go. That's better.
Okay, so is it good now?
Yep.
Okay. So anyways, like the previous person, I have noticed similar things that, you know, I have the problem with snowmobilers kind of trashing and going all around my property when I'm not there. Because I don't live on the old Smoky property, but it's a deer wintering yard. It's a place I want to be preserved for natural, just nature.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are just intruders that come in. You know, I don't mind people walking the property, but snowmobiles and stuff like that, I find it a threat to the wildlife, to be honest.
Okay.
So I think that Beaver Valley is on the map, and I'm concerned that there should be some sort of protection for it further.
Okay. Marlene, I think you're joining from two different devices, so we're getting a little background from the two devices. But if you could mute yourself now, that would be great.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Okay, so the next up I have Dawn. So your mic's on, Dawn, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. My name is Don Churchill. I've been coming to the Beaver Valley since the mid-'60s and a longtime member of the Beaver Valley Ski Club. In those early years, we built a family recreational chalet 75 feet from the edge of the Kimberley Forest. So I'm here today to speak about the Kimberley Forest, a little bit of its background, where we are today, and what we're experiencing over the last couple of years in terms of utilization. Several years ago, the MNR, in response to complaints from the Kimberley community about ATV damage being done on the trail network that existed at that time in the Kimberley Forest. So the Kimberley Forest sits between the Beaver Valley Ski Club and 7A, or adjacent to Talisman. We have 1,000 acres. And as a result of the complaints of ATV damage back 10, 15 years ago, the MNRF called a call to arms meeting in Kimberley regarding the problem. And they set up something like 30 chairs in the Kimberley Hall, and over 100 people showed up. And to jump forward from that, what came from that was a Friends of the Kimberley Forest Committee was formed. We subsequently got an MOU from the MNRF for the custodial responsibility of the 1,000 acres. So we have been working with volunteers over the last few years. The Beaver Valley Nordic Ski Club is one of our partners, of course. And we have today just under 30 kilometers of trails in the Kimberley Forest. We also are working closely with Brian Plumstead, who I see is also on this session today from Grey County on the Grey County Trails Initiative. So over the years, the last few years, what we've been doing is rehabilitating a lot of the damage that was originally done by ATV traffic, as well as the natural erosion from the karst topography of that particular piece of the Niagara Escarpment. So the karst topography is layers of shale and limestone with water running out of the side of the escarpment 12 months a year. And as a result of traffic of ATVs, there was considerable rut damage as well as erosion that wasn't managed for many, many years. So where we are today is that we have in the last 18 months regarding COVID, we've seen an incredible increase in the utilization of our trails. The majority of whom we know come from either weekenders or local residents. But more importantly, late last fall, we were starting to see people who obviously were not what I would call local, but came from some other area quite a ways away. And you could tell by the way they dressed, the way they walked, the garbage that they were leaving occasionally on the trail. So our issues today, right now, is to prepare the management of the resource in such a fashion as that we can accommodate it with more users and make it also a focal point within the Beaver Valley area.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
So a management plan for the Kimberley Forest that addresses those impacts of ATV
so we've been
users
working,
and trail users. And the trail users, you say it could be residents locally from out of town, doesn't matter, but just getting tremendous use.
Yes.
Okay.
So we work with support from Grey Highlands.
Yep.
And we now have a charitable donation mechanism in place.
Okay.
So there's the kimberleyforest.ca website, and there's Kimberley Forest on Facebook.
Okay, that's
we
great.
have a group of just under 30 volunteers that work with us.
Wow, that is a big group. That's
And
fantastic.
almost, I say without exception, all of those folks are either local or weekend residents and users of the area. And
Okay.
not just concentrated on the Beaver Valley Ski Club. Many of our volunteers are not members of the ski club,
Okay.
but are local residents or local users of the area as well.
Okay,
So
Don,
our challenge, just to finish off, is
okay,
parking.
thanks. Parking, okay.
Parking is our issue.
Okay,
And also communications of the resource in terms of promoting it perhaps through tourism channels in conjunction with a lot of the Grey County type of processes that are in place. So,
and telling people the significant, using that communications to tell people how significant the resource is.
and how to use it.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Don. That's very helpful. Next on my list, I have a phone number that ends in 5689. And just so everybody knows, I'm going to go till about 2 o'clock. I'd like to get as far down the list of participants as I can. And then we've got other questions and other ways we're going to get your input. So we'll just kind of go through this and hear from as many people as we can. So 5689. And if I don't see your phones unmuting, I'm going to move on. And then I have Aaron. And then oh, there you go, Aaron. Go ahead. Not hearing you yet, Aaron. Okay, maybe we'll try and come. Oh, is that you, Aaron? You get it working? Nope. Okay, so maybe we'll come back to Aaron. I've got Alex.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We just moved here in November, so I can't really speak about, history and trends.
Okay.
Other than just supporting this effort and its emphasis on looking at the holistic planning framework, and it's great to hear that everybody is so appreciative of the natural beauty here. So
okay, okay, that is great. Thank you, Amy, and then. Oh, is that you, Aaron?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Go ahead.
I own property up in Duncan,
okay.
And we're part-time residents there. I've been coming to the area probably for over 20 years. Started many years ago as a rock climber, as a hiker, and visiting this area. So I've always, I fell in love with it, and have since spending much more time up there. But we have definitely seen one of the trends is the growing use of the area, particularly the trail systems, even the rock climbing crags themselves.
Yeah.
cyclists. So I think it's important in
Yeah.
any kind of plan here that the infrastructure is really upgraded to accommodate the increased use that we're experiencing in the area, which I think is great. I think there's many opportunities for businesses, for people in the area with this increase of visitors.
Okay.
And I just think that, yeah, it really going to support that growth of the users and making sure that it's done in a responsible way.
Okay.
And like Don was saying, you know, making sure there's enough parking, that people don't have
Yeah.
to park all over the street, making sure that people are informed about how to take care of the trails and really
Yeah.
keep them clean, and they use them responsibly. And
Okay.
also realize that a lot of these trails do cross through or adjacent to private owners as well.
Yes. Yeah, I
Support
have
that.
been coming to understand that, just how very tolerant the private owners are. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I had called out Amy and I didn't see a mic come on, and
Hi there.
oh, there you go, Amy.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of go with what Aaron said. I definitely see an increase in activity on the trails, which is wonderful. And I'm on the trails daily, so I do see a lot of people using the trails. I do see that, you know, indication that there's motorized vehicles on the trail, and it's a bit heartbreaking for sure. We all agree on that. I also see, like we all do, an increase in retail or real estate activity here.
Okay.
And that in itself is great, but I'm concerned about animal trails. So just near where I live, there will be 2 houses going up, and it will affect deer trails. So I don't know how we deal with that. So those would be my 2
Okay.
trend comments. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Amy. Then I have Bent, and your camera's on. And so we just, there you go. You're all good.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm a long-term resident. I have a place on Lake Eugenia for more than 50 years.
Okay.
I have been a member for Beaver Valley Ski Club the same time. We enjoy the Beaver Valley very, very much. I do have a concern, and I hope that it's not going to impact, and that is Talisman. It's a heartbreaking place that people have lost an awful lot of money. They've poured money into it to no avail, and the golf course didn't seem to get up and running, and so on. I would like to see if we can somehow maintain that, because a lot of people came to Talisman enjoying the Beaver Valley and the skiing and outdoors, horseback riding, etc. And I think it's a gem that we lost. And I don't want to see that we are interfering with their business. And I don't think it'll be right. So I think that we have to make sure that they are given the chance to develop properly.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that was a gem that we lost. We used to go dancing there when we were young.
Yeah.
Our family, a multi-generation. My grandchildren ski at Beaver Valley.
Okay.
My sons do, and we do.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
my concern.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. Thank you. Then I have Bill, and then Brian, Candace, if you want to get queued up, I'll just, Bill, there you go, Bill.
Thanks, Donna, for letting us participate. It's Bill and Kate Reed. Kate, my wife's family built a chalet here before the ski club was an actual ski club, and have been here since. And I started coming up to the area in 1969. Active members of Beaver Valley. I'm also on the executive of the Beaver Valley Chalet Owners Association, which there's about 120, just over 120 chalets on the actual Beaver Valley Ski Club property that we have an association for. And there's been a significant turnover of chalets. It started a while ago, like over the last 5 years. We've certainly seen more than 25% of the chalets turn over.
Okay.
And
what are the implications of that?
There's certainly, obviously, the price of real estate has been going up significantly. We have a lot of new members to the club, and even before COVID really came, I was seeing more of a significant change from weekend usage to more all seasons usage of the chalets.
Okay.
We, as part of the Beaver Valley Chalet Owners Association, had some issues with the short-term rentals coming up, and people using some of the chalets off season and creating some disturbances.
Okay.
Great Mountains has taken some action in that area. But we still have some issues with swimming on the property. I didn't see swimming as one of the recreational activities, but we're certainly having some issues with overcrowding of the swimming area.
Okay.
On the ski club property.
Okay.
We've also seen a shift. Certainly, it's accelerated with COVID, but people moving from seasonal to full-time residents in the area.
Okay.
And then as for, and looking for more opportunities for recreational activities.
Okay.
There's certainly been a shift from straight skiing to a lot of snowshoeing and
Okay.
other activities in the winter time. And as Dawn mentioned, the Kimberley Forest trails have expanded significantly and are a great asset and a great opportunity to get some exercise and see some of this beautiful valley.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Bill. That is great. Okay. Thank you. I have Brian, Candace, Carlos. And I'm going to keep going then. I have...
Did you say Brian?
I did. Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Brian.
Thank you. Well, I don't live in the Beaver Valley. I'm the manager of tourism for Grey County. Okay. And so certainly have an interest from a tourism perspective. And as Don Churchill mentioned, we've pulled together a group of public land managers from across Grey County that started meeting late last year, really in response to just the overwhelming challenge, I guess, of too many visitors, a lot of folks coming to our natural areas. And so that group includes Ontario Park, Seminar, several conservation authorities, Bruce Trail, several trail groups, etc.
That's great.
So we've really been talking about issues, possible strategies.
Oh, getting a lot of background. There we go. Maybe you're on a couple of different devices.
Sorry, I don't think that was me, but.
Okay.
And as Don Churchill mentioned, parking is probably a top issue. Hogs Falls is probably one of our hot spots where we just see so many more, probably 50% more visitation in 2020 than in 2019.
Okay.
And of course, parking spilling out over on the Lower Valley Road. And I'm sure everybody's aware of those issues.
Okay.
So we're looking to see if there's anything we can do about that this year in the short term, or more likely long term.
Okay.
Working with Grey Highlands on that.
Okay.
Communications is also another big one. We feel talking to people before they get here and try to just let them know how busy it is up here, to be respectful of private property, and to try to spread them out either seasonally or different days of the week, or ideally to other properties. And then we're also looking at signage just to make sure folks stay on the trail, are respectful, and just exhibit better trail behavior.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
So that's a short overview. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to keep clipping through and I'm looking for if there's new, other trends that you've observed. I'm just going to give this another 10 minutes. So I'm going to go and then we'll flip to the other questions. But so if I don't see your mic come on, I'm looking for, we've heard a lot about trails and active transportation and impacts on the natural heritage and impacts on housing, parking. So other trends that we haven't heard yet. So I think I had Chari and then Desmond. And then Eric, Francis, and then Frank. And then Francis or Gabriella. And Guy and Jack. And I do need people that to mute their phones or their computers. Then I have Jan and Wilma.
Can you hear me?
Yep, there you go.
Uh,
There you go.
I'm speaking for both Wilma and I. We have a
Okay.
property on Railroad 13, right up at the very top of the hill, south of Kimberley.
Okay.
Part-time residents, I guess you might call us. We've been there for about 20 years. I learned how to ski at Talisman back when Talisman was a resort 50 to 60 years ago. Most of my siblings and I used to come in from Burlington. My father used to take us skiing there. So we've kind of watched Talisman go from a vibrant property to, you know, kind of a disastrous bankruptcy. And, you know, we're very curious about the better use of that asset. You know, we used to play golf on the golf course on Saturday afternoons, and it's a great little course. We're very active with Bruce Trail, and so we see a lot of the trends that other people have spoken of in terms of the volume of traffic on the trails. One of the things I'd mentioned that maybe hasn't been, well, I don't think it's been mentioned before. I'm a cyclist, and we have a tremendous amount of cycling traffic, and Railroad 13 is a highway, I believe, but it is just not safe for cyclists. And so I'm really hoping that we can revisit the priority of
Recycling. Okay.
Safety thing. And then the other trend that we see, not that we're personally involved, is ATV and snowmobile traffic.
Yeah.
Picked up a lot.
Yeah, I did not hear as much about that at last week's session, so this is very helpful. Okay.
So it's becoming a very busy area. You know, we're very happy about the fact that people have discovered it. We still have lots of friends and acquaintances who have no idea what we're talking about when we talk about the Beaver Valley. When they see it, they realize we're really missing something. So anyway, that's all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Then I had another Jan, and then I have Jeremy, and then a John.
I'm
George.
available.
Oh,
if
there you go,
want.
Jeremy. Go ahead. Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Jeremy Hill. I live near Rob Roy. Really started off as a part-time resident. Grew up skiing at Craigleith, but loved the area. A lot of the trends that people have been talking about, I would echo as well. A lot more traffic.
Okay.
But really, I'm most interested in Talisman Resort and learning more about what the intentions are for that property. We have a business that I think could be helpful, and the purpose of me joining this is to learn more about what the community wants, to see if, you know, what we can offer could be a benefit to the community.
And what's your business, Jeremy?
This is really helpful. We build tiny homes.
Okay.
Tiny cabins.
Okay.
And we have a business related to allowing people to get out into the wild and spend time in cabins, little cabins.
Okay. That is great. Okay, thank you for joining, and hopefully you've already heard a little bit about what's important to people and what their concerns are. So
absolutely.
Thanks, Jeremy. Then I have Jordan.
Could I say a word?
And who's that? John? Yep, go ahead, John. Yep.
Thank you. So we have a place right near Talisman on Silva Road. So I guess a couple, obviously, a couple of people raised it, but very concerned about Talisman. You know, we were disappointed when the ski resort folded. You know, we had moved there looking to enjoy that, and never, it was only, weren't really able to use it much before it shut down. You know, we're concerned about how, you know, how it's moved forward from here. Would not like to see kind of some wholesale, you know, housing development or something go in. We'd like to see something that, you know, is in keeping with the designation as a recreation area. And you know, recognizes and respects the natural environment of the area, particularly since it's just upstream of the entire wetland, you know, Beaver Valley wetland area that's there. So very concerned about, you know, any impact on that. And then more generally, a few other observations, as noted by others, increased use of all the kind of roads and trails around the area. As a cyclist, I would echo the concerns about some of the roads could be safer, and there has been some kind of widening of roads to accommodate a cycling lanes, which I would like to see. I mean, certainly, I would like to see encouraged, and because I think there's a lot of people that love to cycle, and it's a beautiful area. You know, and come and do that safely. I think it would, you know, improve and encourage more people to use the area. Kimberly, I think, has benefited from the community. The town has benefited from that. You know, we see a lot more people at the general store, and you know, and then coming back and going to dinner at you know, at Justin's Oven or something like that once they discover the place. I think that's it. Those are positive.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you, John.
Finally, just ATVs in the Kimberley Forest. Very happy to see that has subsided as a result of some of the work that that group did. So
it sounds like they're very, very well organized. Okay, thanks, John. Okay, just a couple more, and then I'm going to wrap up around 2. So I'm down to.
Could I just mention one thing, please? It's Marlene calling.
Okay, Marlene, go ahead.
One of the concerns I have for the corridor is light pollution. There's a dark sky observatory on the east side of the valley, just above the Beaver Valley area there, and any kind of development that comes along, it would be good. I sent an email in to the county, but it should have like you can develop, but without destroying the night sky by using dark sky approved techniques or lighting and a spectrum of light and all that. So I'm just concerned I get that would be something that should be paramount because the valley is very unique for that.
Okay, thanks, Marlene. I'm going to try and get to a couple people that a few more people that we haven't heard from yet. So I have Nick and Oliver, Pamela. So Nick, Oliver.
Hey there.
Go, Oliver. Yep, go ahead.
I think I saw Krista House in this group as well, but I'm the new appointed tourism ambassador, so I'm not going to be here for long. I'm just
okay. So you're listening in. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Oliver.
For sure.
Then I have Peter. I have 2 Peters.
Pamela here.
Oh, Pamela. Okay, go ahead, Pamela.
Thanks. I put a couple of points in the chat, but I live outside of the region, but enjoy the region for the hiking and the views and the trails, etc. I think the parking and the access points need attention to improve them. as they're overtaxed and probably not nicely maintained enough. Secondly, just like to make sure that the views on those trails can be preserved. I know there have been some safety concerns and then measures taken, say at Hogs Falls because of an accident, but could it not be more accessible on a safer point? Because it's been open and used for multiple generations. So
Okay.
just hate to see
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Pamela. Then I have Peter.
Hi.
Hi,
My
Peter.
wife Lynn and I have been here about 10 years. We live in downtown Kimberley.
Okay.
We've noticed since the collapse of Talisman that the green space is actually much better used as space than it was as a golf course.
Okay.
Those who played golf and ski, I'm sorry you lost your facility. For those of us who hike and run dogs and just enjoy the open green space, there has been a lot of use. And it's turned up as more families who show up here during the COVID time because they can have their kids online at school and they can be in their seasonal properties suddenly a lot more often than they were before. And there's a big increase in that use.
Young family.
Families. So we're seeing, instead of just people who are the retirees or the people who are the weekenders, suddenly the whole family is up for weeks on end or for months.
Okay.
And that's a nice shift in the population.
Okay, so a lot of use of the current state of Talisman as a big green open space. Okay, that's great. Thanks.
And the invasion of non-resident Airbnb owners versus the people who live here in Airbnb, but they're the main residents in the house. The people who live there are great and they do it very responsibly. Some of the owners are pretty good, not all. There are lots that, and this has been a big issue for a few years and it's only going to get worse, better.
Okay.
Be addressed, and everything I've said about parking, I'm reminded of what happens up in Tobermory in the summer when essentially all hell breaks loose. And we're not quite there, but we don't want to get there.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. I'm going to try and get to a couple more people. Then I have another Peter.
Yes, it's me, Donna. Thank you very much.
Hi, Peter.
A quick trend. All of the comments about more activity up here, great, but less economic spin-off, less employment. So all these people are coming, but I'm not, needs to be studied perhaps, but much less employment opportunity, probably a lot less economic spin to our municipal government, who, has the tax base that pays for most of the services that these new visitors are using.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, no, we have not heard a lot about that yet. Thanks for that, Peter. And then I have another Peter. Does the other Peter?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, I'd just like to make the point that perhaps the increase in use that we've seen during the COVID time gives us a little bit of a preview as to what might be the implications of the municipality's desire to increase what they called in your slide adventure recreation. And I think, from our experience on Graham's Hill, on the escarpment, very heavily trafficked with ATVs and snowmobiles, there's a huge contrast between that form of adventure tourism and walkers on the Bruce Trail, whose numbers have increased, but I think we're all pleased to see that and we're all part of it.
Okay.
And I think that if there's going to be an increase in access to the Beaver Valley for recreation, it has to be commensurate with those other ideals of conservation that have been listed.
Yeah.
And the idea that recreation can be whatever you want, that is, it could be on a snowmobile with no muffler in a troop of 20, or could be walking on the Bruce Trail. Those are just not compatible, and they're with each other, and they're also not compatible with our vision of the Beaver Valley as a conservation area.
Okay. That is a very interesting observation and link of the two things. If there is going to be increase in access, it goes hand in hand with other aspects of conservation. Okay. Thank you, Peter.
Todd has been waiting patiently. I know you're going to get to him, but before you close off this session, this part of the questioning, can you?
And sorry, what was the name?
Todd.
Todd, go ahead, Todd.
Todd, if he wants to speak now.
Thanks, Donna. Yeah, I just had a couple of things. So I've been up here for a long time, I guess 1990, right out of university. First job was at Talisman with Jake Hammer. And then my wife and I, 35 years later, are still here, lived in Kimberley, Virginia, and now I'm on the lake, really close to one of the road allowances. So obviously, yeah, just concur what most folks have said about, over tourism, abuse, lack of respect over the past couple of years compared to what it used to be like, whether it be, Crown property, municipal property, private property, especially, abutting onto a road access. We've had several issues in the past couple of years, whether calling 911, whether it be fire set by people using the road allowance. A fellow OD'd last year, no vital signs. Ambulance had to come. We're dealing with pretty much that every weekend. We weren't dealing with that at all 5 and 6 years ago. So that's a phenomenon that's really kind of happened the last couple of years. And I think a couple of things that I've noticed compared to other areas that you travel in, almost all of the recreational opportunities in the Beaver Valley, Lake Eugenia, are free compared to a lot of other areas. You don't see that as much in the Blue Mountains, over Sauble Beachway, even up the Bruce Peninsula up towards Tobermory. So a lot of these accesses and trails and lack of parking places are free. There's one bylaw enforcement officer for Grey Highlands, which is a pretty big geography, who often doesn't work weekends. So, calling enforcement when these infractions or abuses are happening, isn't helping that much. And the other thing, in all honesty, that isn't helping much, and I know there's a representative here on the call from, Grey County Tourism, is the tourism publications and a lot of local magazines are promoting a lot of these places as access points, recreation points that aren't set up from an infrastructure point of view to be able to have things like parking or bathrooms or garbage facilities as well. So I think that not only are people, more people in the area obviously coming up here and discovering the Beaver Valley, and definitely COVID's helping to drive that, but I also think a lot of the tourism publications locally are helping to drive that as well, and maybe sending tourists to places that maybe aren't set up for tourists. And
the
last point I'll have is just the balance part. I agree. I think it was Bent that said, Talisman was a gem. I worked there for 9 years, so I'm a little biased, but it was a community hub. It was awesome. A lot of people learned to ski there, dinners out there. I also think that if it got back to that community hub, some of the access to some of the trails and recreation opportunities could be more controlled through guided tours and guided hikes and those things that used to happen at Talisman as well. So that's kind of my piece real quickly. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Todd. I have just a few more people on the list, and I would like to just make sure I get down the list, and then we'll go to the next question. So I'm going to quickly call out the people that we haven't heard from. I have Reed, S&L, Sandy.
Reed here.
Go ahead, Reed.
I'm a full-time resident in Flesherton. Trends that I've noticed, other than what's already been mentioned quite a lot, is increase in intensification of agriculture in our area. A lot more industrial uses on farms, some clearing of woodlots, a lot of clearing out of hedgerows. And this has, I think, mostly unnoticed impact on the nature and wildlife in our area.
Okay, thank you, Reed. No, we have not heard a lot on this call about agriculture. We did hear a little bit about it in some sessions last week. Then I have Shockey, Steve, Warren.
Can you hear me?
And then I do see a couple of hands up. And who is this speaking?
This is Shockey.
Yep, go ahead, Shockey. Yep, go ahead, Shockey.
First of all, I want to congratulate the municipality for taking this this step. We did that 10 years ago. I have been a resident for the past almost 30 years. It's very nice to see the participation today and in the other sessions and what have you. We do have a lot of challenges in the valley. And I believe Don and Bent and Bill summarized three different scenarios. There hardly has been talk about economic development. I think this exercise is about economic development. I think it, and I believe Talisman, that used to be the largest employer in the area, is actually a hidden gem and is actually the soul and heart of any economic development that is going to happen in the region. But to say all of that, I think we have the challenges of, we have three different kinds of mentalities in the valley. You know, we have the NIMBY, the not in my backyard people. We have the old people like Ben that has been there for so many years. And we have the new ones that are just coming up. I think we need to embrace a mentality of investing in the future, investing in the children that cannot afford these homes that are really going up like nuts these days. You know, I believe more important than all of this is to have a unified political will in the council with somebody that's going to steer this forcefully after we adopt a vision as to what we really want to do. And we collectively as families, and taking in consideration, if we want to bring a developer on board, make sure we have a developer that will embrace the environment that is very sensitive to the valley and the heritage. Because you know what? We have one of the most beautiful valleys in the country as far as I'm concerned, you know?
Okay.
But it's going to take us also, we, the folks, we, the inhabitants of the area, to come together, you know, and embrace the future. That's something that's been very hard because we did 10 years ago. There was a lot of consultation 10 years ago before they sold the land for the tax arrears and what have you. So I want to wish you and your company luck. I want to wish all you participants, you know, that, you know, we have to be involved and we have to move. We need to move the process forward because it's been sitting for 10 years. We need to move the process forward. Thank you very much. And have a wonderful day, everybody.
I hope you can still stay on and hear the rest of the conversation, Shockey.
I got to go. I'm sorry. I have another meeting.
I'm going to go to the two hands that I see that are raised. So I have Sydney and Guy, and then I'm going to move on to the next question. Sydney, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for giving me the time to speak. I am a member of a multi-generational family that's been in the Beaver Valley for coming up on 50 years. My parents had bought a farm just down the road from Talisman. It's a 100-acre farm. It abuts onto the Bruce Trail. We have an easement across our property that permits access through the Bruce Trail. I have a young family, and we feel very privileged to have been part of the Beaver Valley. It's something that is very, very close to our hearts. In fact, my brother just bought a property in Duncan so that we can continue to be in the valley as a family. One thing that has not been spoken of, which I think is critically important, is that the Beaver Valley is, as a natural system, a watershed system.
Yes.
I haven't heard anybody mention
that's a good point.
Protection of the water. We are on a natural spring. We're very sensitive to fluctuations in the water table. We're very sensitive to pollution in the water table. And we have certainly noticed over the past 50 years, in the last 10 years, because of the increase of development in the area, a reduction and fluctuations in the water table that we never saw before. That's a real concern. And I wanted to highlight that.
Okay. Thank you very much. We did hear a little bit about that last week, but we certainly haven't heard a lot. So thank you. Guy, you've got your hand up, and then I'm going to close this question. There you go, Guy. Go ahead.
There, man, mute
There you
up.
go.
I just want to thank presenters for being transparent and kind of like involving the community in this discussion. It would have been easy to kind of push things forward. So I'm a bit of a lurker here. I really like, there was a couple of comments that I thought that I hope that will be observed, and that is the cycling. It's becoming very popular. And the light pollution. I happen to live close to the edge of the valley, and people leave their lights on, and it's nice to see the stars at night. I'm probably getting a little sentimental here, but I just do it right. Like keep the involvement of the community, and I think that whatever's happening here is good. And I encourage everybody to keep involved and make sure that that whatever you want to happen for yourselves is going to happen. And I had a question around the timing. Like, there's a 3-month thing. Are they gonna? Is this? It's probably been answered before, but this where we're talking now, 3 months from now, they're gonna make a decision, or we can delay the timing, or that's probably out there. But I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, and maybe I'm going to come back to that at the end, Guy, and I will summarize with what happens after these workshops and the other work that we have to do when we're going to wrap
Much
it up.
appreciated. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, so with that, I am going to share my screen again. Thank you very much, everybody. I have pages and pages of notes already. So the next question we want to ask a little bit about, and I'm going to use now that reactions button and just look for any kind of icon you put on your screen as somebody who wants to share some thoughts. And I'm interested now, and a couple of people talked about this on the last question, how the Beaver Valley corridor relates to some of the other areas in the province that have a focus on tourism and recreation, seasonal residents, however you want to characterize it. And so how it relates to the Bruce Peninsula or anything along Lake Huron or Collingwood or Muskoka or Niagara region. If there's any comments that you want to share with us about how the Valley relates to those other areas. And Guy, I'm going to just take your hand down if people can lower your hand after you've commented. So I'm just going to look out on the screen for anybody who has any thoughts or comments about how Beaver Valley might relate to those others. And thank you, Melanie. You can also physically put your hand up. So go ahead. So that reactions button is on the bottom of your screen. It's got a
Sorry, I'm not a big.
There you go.
Okay.
Hand raising is fine too. So Waying, if you can watch out for those two. Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, my name's Melanie Rosen, and I live in Kimberley as a full-time resident. And I'm also a psychotherapist, and I do a lot of work in the First Nations communities around here, all the way up to Manitoulin Island. I've asked some of those people to come and join this meeting today because I had the opportunity to partake in a water walk, if you're familiar with that. But I want to sort of echo from the last time of what Sydney was speaking about, is their deep and profound concern for the water, not as a resource, but having a spirit of in and of itself. This is all connected, all the way from the Niagara Falls, all the way up to, and I think it's a little known perspective somehow that isn't represented here, is we are sitting upon traditional lands of the First Nations, and they have a deep understanding about what this land is and how to live in harmony with it. And what I see is not a lot of representation, not a lot of knowledge about the trail systems that were in fact something before the Bruce Trail. Those are indigenous superhighways, they would call it. And unfortunately, there isn't a conversation. And what I see is a lot of tension between different groups and not a lot of unity. So between newcomers, people who have had their land here for years, Native people, cyclists, cars, truckers, So it feels like there's a lot of fragmentation, and I think there needs to be more of a conversation established with people who, you know, who live on reservations. And
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Wit.
Yes. So the kinds of things when I'm saying, how does it connect? What we've heard in other conversations is if there's a connection with how different adjoining areas are marketed or promoted, or whether there's synergies between one area or another, or really just whatever comes to mind. So Pamela, I see your hand is up. Go ahead, Pamela.
Hi, thank you. Again, I am a resident of the town of Blue Mountains, and myself and many of my friends don't distinguish municipal boundaries or regional boundaries or county boundaries. We're up here and we enjoy the nature, the environment, the shops. I was in Heathcote today. I went as, you know, we head out to explore, to go to the farms, to buy our produce. It's all a regional area. There's no municipal boundaries.
Okay.
And the previous speaker's point, I believe that some of this area is the headwaters for many of the creeks and rivers that flow through the town of Blue Mountains. So again, there's no municipal boundaries to the water, to the birds, to the animals. And it's all one big, I don't want to say backyard, but it's the ecosystem from the Niagara Escarpment all the way over through to the other side of the Niagara Escarpment. So
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Wai-Ying, are you seeing any other?
I'm not seeing any other hands up.
Okay. Does anybody else want to weigh in on how this area connects to?
Yes, Donna, it's Peter Jodky.
Yep, go ahead, Peter.
And it just follows on Pamela's good point. The corridor itself maybe is too small to compare to all of those other regions that you have on your list there. But to Pamela's point, Grey Highlands, Blue Mountains, other parts of this area of Grey are becoming a food and beverage destination. There's a culture here in local food and fine beverage that has emerged. And maybe this should have happened in the first area of comments, but I think it compares to Niagara. It compares to Prince Edward. I think if there are three areas in the province where people want to come and enjoy local food and artisans, market gardens, even people who are into wanting to start those businesses are coming here. So is that a comparator? I don't know. Maybe it's more of a trend. But I think it's important, and to Pamela's point, it's really not just the corridor. It's the apple growing region closer to the bay, which has re-emerged after decades of not being there in the 80s and 70s. All these things are new opportunities. I have another comment, and maybe it's context for how this goes forward this afternoon. Grey Highlands doesn't have a tourism strategy. So we're kind of poking around the idea that we want to hear everyone's views about what is our tourism strategy. Well, Grey Highlands actually doesn't have one. The county does. Blue Mountain does. This process may carry the weight of helping the municipality of Grey Highlands come up with a strategy, but that it doesn't have one is a bit of a struggle because we're all kind of inputting into it, but we're sort of absent that from the municipality. I think that's why there's maybe some encouragement perhaps from the groups that you're hearing from, or some doubt and skepticism. I just want one more point I'm going to get in because I might have to leave. We've got a strategy. The municipality came in with a short-term accommodation plan that now has those providers who are important to tourists who come here, now licensed and paying fees for bylaw enforcement, etc. That's okay. That happened, but it happened in the absence of really council not having a good sense of our tourism economy.
A bigger strategy. Okay.
How to act? Well, strategy, the word is a very dangerous one because it's kind of loose. We just like to see the tourism economy land here with business opportunity and a return to our council and our tax base so that we can grow. And that, so it's finer point for Grey Highlands right now. It could take Grey County's tourism plan to adopt it, or it can borrow a little bit more of the unique stuff that Blue Mountains does. But in any case, without one, council's a bit sort of, we feel like council's floundering a bit, trying to figure out what to do on this plan for the border, what to do exactly for its lands at Talisman. And so maybe that's it. Maybe that's the truth of the matter in this process, that council wants enough input to be able to help it along with the bigger idea of how do you actually do tourism well here and capture the benefits.
Okay, okay. And I do have a question on economic development coming up, but that is really helpful, those comments, Peter. Thank you. And we had not heard it compared to Niagara and Prince Edward County. That's very interesting. And that obviously a direct connection to the apple growing area closer to the bay. Okay, Todd, you've got your hand up, and then I'm going to move on. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, just one comment on kind of in terms of us, the Beaver Valley corridor, how we're comparing to other areas. I agree with Peter on obviously a tourism strategy is needed, but I think one of the differences with Talisman closing down is the lack of accommodations. I think part of that is driven obviously some of these short-term rental issues that I think everyone's kind of going through in the valley. But if you kind of compare the Beaver Valley and all the recreational opportunities that we have to offer, and then you kind of compare us to other areas like Prince Edward County or, the Niagara Peninsula or those, there's really not a lot of kind of accommodations, and it's twofold. I think it forces people in to do other things, but also for I have 3 kids, for the young folks, they have to take off for employment. They have to leave the valley. And I don't think that's great for our future. And when you look down the road, it'd be awesome to have more opportunities here locally. But I do think when you look at the valley the way it stands now, because of kind of what's happened with Talisman, the lack of accommodations on that kind of scale and the other issues that creates, I think needs to be factored in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Todd. I'm just going to lower your hand. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again and go to another question. And this question is just, I think it's a good a jumping off point from Todd's point about a lack of accommodation. And the question is about what the opportunities are for the Beaver Valley corridor that, if pursued, would represent a positive outcome for the municipality and the community. And certainly we have heard what some of the ideas are for opportunities. And a lot of those opportunities are better management, better communications, a different kind of information about the sensitivities and the qualities of the natural features. We've heard about opportunities of making a direct connection between increasing use and infrastructure, or conservation and management, and all the things that go along with increased use. And so I wanted to take a minute and just kind of do a bit of a brainstorm about what some of those opportunities are. And again, I'm going to look for you waving your hand or putting up, using one of the reaction buttons, raise hand, or anything, whatever is in your reactions button. And I see, Melanie, you go ahead. So people also, that button at the bottom, reactions, and you might see a heart, a thumbs up, a clapping, a smiling, a crying. So just put any icon at all. It doesn't have to be a hand. So Melanie, go ahead. What opportunities that, if pursued, would represent a positive outcome for the area?
Thanks, Donna. I see a huge opportunity for us to be the ambassadors of a green, sustainable, holistic way of living with nature. I also see an opportunity in that to weave together a big missing piece, which is a focus on mental health as it relates to that. So, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, or Talisman could become like a hub where there's focused activities that might educate people and provide a bit of containment and direction, so that when people are coming, that there's a kind of a tone that's being set and held. And I think there's so many people here that live here all year round that can be ambassadors of these things. It seems like there's a lot of incredible skills when I listen to these, the people that are here. There's a lot of artists. I wanted to mention artists because it draws a lot of artists, and I'm an expressive arts therapist and a performance artist. And there's more opportunity other than food and beverage and cycling and this. It's like this place inspires beauty and people who love beauty. And I think that people want to feel those things. And I think if we give a little bit of guidance through focused activities or some definition around bylaws, around you can do this, you can do that, that if there's a kind of holding instead of just come on up and just go for it,
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Melanie. Ying, are you seeing anything in the chat box? Is anybody putting ideas, which I should say, if you want to share some ideas on those opportunities, put it in the chat box too. Ying?
Pamela has her hand up again.
Yeah, well, before I get to Pamela, Ying, are you seeing anything? And then I see you, Dawn. Anything in the chat box, ideas that people are sharing about opportunities?
Lots of people are agreeing with Melanie's comments about green, holistic, sustainable future.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think this is from the last question, a comment related to learning from the development in Collingwood.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good way to talk about how the two are related to learn.
Yeah. And I think mental health again, as Melanie mentioned. So, yeah.
Okay. So keep an eye out. And if people want to share their ideas for what are the opportunities for the Beaver Valley corridor that if pursued would be a positive outcome. And in the meantime, I got Pamela, then Dawn, and then Jeremy. So go ahead, Pamela, go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. Yes, just again, picking up on both of Melanie's comments is that one of the reasons I enjoy going to the area is the spiritual connection with the Indigenous or First Nations.
Okay.
And when I can find that educational piece on the trail or in the literature that I look up, this was settled for its energy and its rock formations, and those kinds of things can add to the not Christian but spirituality of the place and the energy that it provides, and can add to the education component or opportunity that Melanie was talking about. And the other thing too is that I love the small farms and the independent businesses that are starting up, whether it's a cidery or a beekeeper or a flower perennial flower garden outfit, or the bake shops. So all those independents, wonderful. And regenerative farming is very important, I think, in the area too.
And the what farm?
Regenerative
farm. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pamela. Dawn, and then Jeremy.
Just briefly, I really, really like what I'm hearing in terms of what, in my mind, that's evolving to a somewhat of a vision and a direction for the development of the Beaver Valley, and specifically in the Kimberley area. I want to bring to mind an experience I had around 1999, 2001. I had several trips to Sedona in Arizona, and it was full of artisans, small business, entrepreneurial, people being close to nature, and all of that. It was really, really wonderful. 10 years later, I went back. Main Street was full of tourist buses, souvenir shops, fast food outlets, and it got totally out of hand from what it originally had been in place for many, many years when I first visited. So that whatever direction that we're going, my caution is let's keep commercialization to a minimum or at the level of what I'm hearing now in terms of what people are looking for. So I'm happy and pleased to hear what folks are saying today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. Sorry, Jeremy, and then I see Jack. You've got your hand up. Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. I would like to, yeah, it's just really encouraging to hear what everyone's saying today. And I'd like to echo a lot of the thoughts in regards to, preserving and respecting the valley and what it really contributes, not only to the health and well-being of the community, but, also understanding how we can find a way to keep it that way. And part of it has to do with when people do come to the area who aren't, paying taxes, who aren't contributing, financially to the area, how do we maintain it? How do we collect garbage and maintain the trails? And, it can't just only be volunteers. I think there needs to be some type of thoughtful development with entrepreneurs, with local businesses like the beekeepers and the bakeries and all this, and artists, and really working towards as a community to ensure that any sort of new places for people to stay is done carefully and thoughtfully. And I think it sounds like everyone, for the most part, sounds very much aligned with that direction. So it's nice to hear. And
okay, and how would you, where you say places for people to stay that are all done thoughtfully and carefully, how would you organize that? Do you have ideas on what you would put in place to make sure people have to follow whatever rules and framework?
Well, I think it has to do with, partly has to do with, not really taking down any trees or using any minimal impact on the environment. This could be done with like eco lodges, sustainable development, and being thinking about how to give more than you take.
Okay, I like that. And there are lots of examples of places that set some pretty strict guidelines for development to make sure it achieves whatever goals and objectives that particular place has. So that's an interesting observation. Thanks, Jeremy. Then I have Jack and then Nick. Jack, go ahead.
Hi, Donna. Thanks for hosting. It's been a great conversation. I think just a couple of observations. My wife and I and our family have lived here on the Bruce Trail. We first started in Creemore and then Glen Huron, and now we're in Ravenna. And we've seen a lot of growth since the early 90s. Anyway, we certainly don't want this area to turn into Niagara Falls.
Okay.
We don't need buses. We don't need lights. We don't need for hotels. We don't need it to be Whistler, and we're close. We're close to being Whistler because we're only an hour and a half from 20 million people. And if you go out west and you look at Tofino and what's happening in Tofino, you may understand a little bit about what could happen to the growth in this area as well. Do we need boats that hold 40 people that can go out and go fishing, or cruise flower pots, or drive down the Beaver Valley in a power boat? Or do we need any more kayaks on the river in Epping? I mean, there's not even a bathroom or Heathcote, and they call that a kayak launching area. There's not even a parking lot. I think we need to have designated growth areas. We need to designate growth areas.
By growth,
I'm not sure Talisman. Yeah.
Sorry,
where are you going to build homes?
Okay, so let's go back.
Hotels, where you build homes.
Let me just go back to what you were saying, Jack, about where you put the canoes in at Epping or Heathcote, and there's no, I think what we heard on other points that people were making today is there's no supporting infrastructure. There's no obvious places to park. There's no seasonal washrooms. There's no, okay.
You gotta get in the water to pee. There's no drinking water. There's not even portable bathrooms. And there's nowhere to launch your boat. It's a mud pie when you want to. Anyway.
And then
that's another conversation.
I interrupted you when you were making a point about designating growth areas.
Yeah, so where do we build a hotel? Where do we have the Blue Mountain Village in the Beaver Valley? Is that Heathcote? Is that Epping? Is that, somewhere there has to be a growth area, and that way you don't destroy the whole world around it.
Okay.
We came here because we love this area for its recreation, its birds, its plants, its animals. I think we have to be very responsible, and we need to have a very, very, very large protected area that doesn't have a house or a trail, not a trail, but if you want to walk or you want to take your ATV or you want to take your snowmobile, maybe you need to have a guide and you have to pay. User pays.
Okay. Okay, thanks,
Anyway,
Jack.
that's
Thank
my
you.
spiel. Thanks.
Thanks. Nick. It's showing up as Nick.
And there.
Hello, there you go. There you go.
Good afternoon. I'm Nick Sapinka. My wife and I lived on the Kimberly Creek Farm for 24 years. During that time, I served as a volunteer land steward for the Bruce Trail for 15 years. I also served as a supervisor of the Kimberly Trail, and along with village volunteers, we cleared the Kimberly Trail from the road up to Old Baldy. For 12 years, I mowed the Kimberly Trail. I mention my activities to indicate an appreciation for hiking trails and conservation. It's important to get the scenic Talisman up and running again. That is the hub of the area. Good planning and investment can create a reasonable balance between resort development and conservation. Turning Talisman into a resort that offers a variety of outdoor activities, including golf, would make Talisman profitable. Kimberly, unlike other towns in a GH, does not have an arena. So a golf course would offer locals and visitors recreation. Canada has 5.7 million golfers. Simcoe County has 54 golfers. Kimberly, BC in the Purcell Mountains has numerous resorts and 3 quality golf courses and numerous hiking trails, kayaking, and everything else.
Okay, Nick, I'm just going to interrupt just for a second. I want you to absolutely send your written, what you're reading from, into the municipality so we make sure we have a good record of all the comments. But for this conversation, just, speak from the heart about what you're talking about. You're focusing on Talisman. And so just tell us in a couple of sentences what you're looking for, and then make sure you submit the written submission.
Well, I'd like to see Talisman developed.
Okay.
And it would create jobs. As somebody else mentioned, this is an economically depressed area.
Yeah.
We don't offer jobs for young people, and they have to leave.
Okay. And just tell me, developed, just because you were getting into some statistics, just give me, the 5 words. Developed as what? Talisman would be developed, I think I heard you say, as a resort. So would that be accommodation, recreation, golfing?
Yes, I'd like to see it spa and having guests in and activities.
Okay, that is great. And make sure you fling that your note into the municipality. Thanks, Nick.
Okay.
Peter, and then I'm going to, then I have Jan, and then Robin, I want to get you queued up to do the 4th poll. Go ahead, Peter, and then Jan.
Thanks, Donna. So I'm just going to put some support behind what Todd said and what Jack said.
Yeah.
It is going to be about accommodation. We would like, I think we need to have places for people to stay.
Okay.
They are touring here or eventually in generations to live here. And with from Jack, it's where will we have growth? We can't avoid it. It's already coming here. And that just really speaks to the municipality's official plan. And, it's going to have, I think, the Beaver Valley corridor is going to have some careful thought by the municipality about how much growth here and in which way. And of course, one of the triggers for that could be the result of the joint venture with the municipality and the Talisman owners, but it has to be more than that. We operate two short-term accommodations, though they become very long-term now. They are both historic homes closer to the Feversham area, and they're popular. They're not so much now because people really can't travel here, but there's no end of demand for our two places all season long. They become places for skiers to stay over the winter, and the demand for that this past winter from Beaver Valley was excessive. We just could not, if we had more places we could properly rent out, we would do it. So there is an accommodation problem, and I think one of the little shadows behind the short-term accommodation plan was to actually have providers of those, good providers of those, shut down. And so that's not a good thing. We don't want, we want accommodations here that are appropriately run and provide nice places for people who tour here.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I have Jan and then Reed, and then we're going to launch the another poll. So Jan, go ahead.
Hi, Donna, can you hear me?
Oh, I have two Jans. Sorry, Jan and Wilma and Jan Chambers. So I'll go ahead, Jan and Wilma, and then I'll go to Jan Chambers. Yep,
I
go
wanted
ahead.
to make mention that we already have an educational institution in the valley at the Kimbercote Farm. There's a school, like a grade school that runs an environmental program, and that facility and that farm there's been significant developments and improvements made there, and there's a very vibrant education program that fits with some of the comments that were made about promoting what happens at Talisman in terms of what kind of a place it could be. It could, I don't know whether education is an opportunity, but just an environment in which spirituality can be promoted and being in touch with the environment and that kind of thing. So that was one thing I wanted to mention. The other thing is that a significant trend, which is starting, is wineries, breweries in the valley. And there are some people that have made significant investments in the area. And I think it is already promoting traffic and interest. I just to reiterate the point I made earlier, I really think that it's an awful shame what happened to Talisman, and we should focus on repurposing it in the context of the comments that are being made about stewardship of the environment and education and respite.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jan, the other Jan, and then Reed.
Can you hear me, Donna?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. I just wanted to, I'm curious about our opportunities in the valley for a multi-purpose trail system. We live at the top of Beaver Valley Ski Club. We downhill ski, we cross-country ski, we snowshoe. And I've hiked the whole Bruce Trail, and they're fantastic things, and they're all unique. And the Bruce Trail is just very serene and peaceful and quiet. But we've done a lot of like adventure travel in Europe and walking holidays. And one thing that draws us there that we haven't found as much in Canada is multi-purpose trails where people can walk or ride their bikes, and they're very eco-friendly over there. A lot of people will ride their bikes to work, and it gets people off the roads. And I don't know if the valley's too developed already and there's too much private land, but I just wanted to throw that out there because linear travel would bring opportunities for B&Bs, for the artists, for the bakeries, for things to pop up along the way, but it also might keep tourists from loitering the way they collect at beaches in other communities. It might be a more active
Keep
type
them
of tourism
moving.
where people might move through.
And what does what do those multi-purpose trails look like? Just paint a picture for
Well,
us. Like, how wide are they?
Actually, you know what is interesting? They aren't much different than our rail trails.
Okay.
You could push a stroller on them, but
Yeah.
I think what's different, I think an opportunity the Beaver Valley has is when I'm on the Bruce Trail, I don't always have views because the leaves are up, and you know, the rail trails out by Meaford and stuff, they're very wide open, but the Beaver Valley is so beautiful, and the views that would give us, and potentially access to the river as well. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. It's a great suggestion. And Reed.
Yeah, the question was about opportunities.
Yeah.
I think with the municipality's involvement in this, and given that the escarpment commission has designated this as a recreational land, I think there's an opportunity here for any development to be almost a kind of a demonstration project on sustainable development with a goal of the entire project being net zero.
Okay.
And the other opportunity, something I noticed there was an article about it in the Collingwood news site, and it seemed a majority of the comments under the article were from mountain bikers who are really seems to be starving for some kind of site where they can do downhill riding.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to look at as well.
Okay. Robin, can you load up that? I think this is our fourth poll question, and it has to do with economic development. And so this question is based, we've had conversation about economic development, filter through every question that we've talked about. I want to know what your number one consideration is for economic development in the Beaver Valley corridor. And it could be none of the ones that are on this list. And then you will put what your number one consideration is in the chat box, and Wai-Ying will have a look at what you're saying and read some of them off. So just give it a couple of minutes. And Wai-Ying, you can, if you're seeing anything coming in the chat box, just read them out.
Okay. John's asking how we define sustainable development.
Wai-Ying, do you want to weigh in on that a little bit? Just from a planner's, where do planners start with?
Planners start with the province's growth plan and the provincial policy statement. Someone's putting a link up here. So they define it as a sort of a holistic, comprehensive way of looking at development, not only development, but maintaining the natural environment that looks at economics, it looks at transportation, it looks at mobility, it looks at density. So it has all of the sort of different baskets that would normally encompass how communities evolve and grow. That's where we start. And then what happens with that is that the lower tier municipalities like the county and the regions within the province would take their cues from these guiding principles and develop their own definition, or refine their definition of what sustainable development means, typically within their official plans or strategic plans.
So there you go. That's
I'm seeing lots of things in here now.
So let's end the poll, Robin, just so people can just have a quick look. And Wai-Ying, anything else coming in from the chat box?
A comment here about one of the things that's missing from this list is environmental protection and regulation of tourism.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point.
Conservation should be number one.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this. And now I'm going to.
Sorry, a couple of people have chosen none, and the
Okay.
people who've chosen none have said conservation should be number one, which is not
Okay.
on the list. Yeah.
It should be, yeah, okay. Now, the very last question, and I'm going to take this down in a minute, is we are, this is a Beaver Valley visioning exercise. We're very high level. We're looking at 11,400 hectares. And so we are looking for words and phrases that we could capture in an overarching or aspirational statement, vision statement, that would describe a preferred future, an ideal future for the Beaver Valley corridor. I put up the word cloud that I showed you in the beginning, which were the words and phrases when I asked you what words best describe the valley, and you gave me these words: natural, opportunity, ecosystem, green. The words relate to how frequently they were used when answering that question. And so now I'm going to put up a whiteboard, and Wai-Ying is going to, I'll give you a really quick tutorial on how to insert words. So I'm going to put in a test, and I want you to put in words or phrases that you think we should try and capture in that vision statement. Wai-Ying, can you explain to people where they find the text box? And
So when you want to find the tools, you can hover over your screen. It's either top or bottom of your screen, depending on PC or Apple, I guess. And there should be a button called View Options. If you click on View Options, there's a drop-down menu that has an option of selecting Annotate, and that's the third from the top. Once you click on Annotate, there should be a menu that actually pops up on your screen, and on that menu, you'll have a whole array of tools at your disposal, including text and draw and stamp. So under each one of those, you can click on it and then click on the whiteboard, and either a pen will appear or a text box will appear, and then you can type in, there we go. Sydney's first, very quick.
And you can also put your word or phrase in the chat box. Wai-Ying will read it out. And we've also been telling people to, old school, if you can see my camera, just write it on a piece of paper, big marker, and hold it up to the screen, and Wai-Ying will read those off as they come in. So whatever way you want to share those words or phrases, and then we look at everything we get, and there's somebody doing it by hand. There's protect.
I see someone saying, sorry, a new and better Algonquin Park. Donna, we had someone with an iPad who had an issue with this as well. I don't recall how that's different.
I can't remember. Robin, do you remember?
On an iPad where that menu might come from?
No, I don't know, but I think last time the person wrote with their finger, which seems to be what
Oh, maybe that's what that person's doing, protect the water.
I'm not sure the iPad shows you the text option.
Well, that's a nice color.
Robin, you just write with your finger on the iPad.
Okay.
Select pen and write with your finger.
There you go. Okay.
And I'm the protect the water and the new Algonquin Park guy.
Okay. And we need to, yeah, I love, we haven't had anybody right on the screen yet. That's perfect.
You can move your text box around as well. So if you find a sort of a blank white space, you can put it on there before you click away from the box.
You have to click the pen.
Okay, and any other words coming in on the chat box, Wai-Ying?
Sacred and irreplaceable.
Okay. Respectful management. Yeah, that's good. Manage development.
Balance.
Like the heart. Love the diagrams on the whiteboard too. ATVs.
Conservation.
No ATVs, yep. Access to nature. Okay, those are some great contributions. Health, wellness and health, yeah.
Again, irreplaceable and protect in caps.
Okay. Park.
Views, escarpment, ridges, farms, green, heritage equals protection, supernatural. Supernatural.
That's a great phrase, supernatural. That is great. Limit noise and light pollution, yeah. It is good to know. Okay, so Robin, can you we'll just give it one more second, just see a couple more things. Managed access, yeah. I think that whole conversation of figuring out what the capacity is and how to manage use, it's very interesting.
Okay, it's saved.
All right, thanks, Robin. So I will stop sharing that. And I'm going to now go to the last slide just to share to the question I had in the beginning earlier on. Just looking back at my notes, I can't remember who asked me that, but about what our schedule was, what happens after today. So this is the wrapping up the conversation. But before we end, I will come back and ask anybody else was anything else you want to share. There's many ways to stay informed and to share your thoughts. This is not the end of the conversation. This is the beginning of the conversation. So we are posting all 6 workshop recordings. I will try for this week, if not early next week. We're going to summarize everything we've heard in the workshops in a document. So we'll be summarizing what's in the chat box, the conversation, our pages and pages of notes. And we will also be reviewing all the written comments that are submitted. Submit those to ecdev@greyhighlands.ca. We're going to summarize those comments as well. We're going to use the workshop content to prepare an online survey to get response to what we heard at the workshops. And it'll be a survey that's pretty simple. We're going to go through and summarize some of the key directions and comments and ask people whether they agree or disagree with that direction. Hopefully get that survey launched before the end of May. The municipality is doing a terrific job on the webpage at greyhighlands.biz as the landing page for all the information on this project. So that's where you'll find the workshop recordings. You'll find the slide deck that we used at the beginning and the maps. Everybody always loves maps, and I am the first one in that line. So just keep a lookout and don't stop talking about it, and tell your friends and family that if they have ideas that they want to share, to get that into ecdev@greyhighlands.ca. We're going to aim to have our report done by early summer. And I've had a few questions about what exactly is that early report. And so we're tasked with high level, the kind of input on an overarching vision statement and some guiding principles that should form the foundation of future planning and design in the Beaver Valley. So we're not talking about any specific location or site in the 11,400 hectares, but we're talking about really trying to build a foundation from which more detailed planning can be undertaken in the valley. I'm just going to stop sharing that and have a scan. So it's 3 o'clock. That's the end of our presentation, and I really want to thank everybody for carving out a bit of time and joining the conversation. We found these just fascinating, and I've been really excited to hear some of the things that we've been learning. So they've been really, really helpful for us. So we're not due to end till 3:30, and I'm happy and want to stay on and continue talking to people if there's other things you want to share. For those of you who have other things you got to get to, feel free to jump off at any time. So we're going to keep a recording until there's no more comments that are coming in. So I have Jack and Peter that have your hands up, and other people can again wave. So go ahead, Jack. Oh, maybe that was an old hand. Peter.
Okay, so just on the survey, I know you want to keep the result of everything you're doing, which is really fine work, to a high level. But words like, we chose none of the above in the last little poll you did because we didn't understand what optimize meant, and we didn't find a difference really between any of the choices. So if you're going to poll, maybe we would suggest you find terms that people can distinguish among choices, and that might be more helpful. We would find that easier to participate in, and you might find the result more helpful. That's our suggestion.
Okay, so what kinds of things for that what's most important to you with respect to economic development? Let's just put that out there. So what kinds of things would be easier to associate with from your perspective?
Well, you'd have to figure it out, but we didn't find it helpful to be sustainable economic development versus economic development and recreation versus economic and environmental protection. Like those they weren't very different.
Okay.
And so if you're surveying for weighing results of feedback, then economic development should stand on its own. And that's job creation and, places to live and stay.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be really mixed with environmental values at all, because you want some weight on each of the sort of various themes. And if this is going to be about mixing themes to a point where the only choice is to optimize them, well, that's hard to understand too. What does optimize?
Okay,
we're just looking
that's helpful.
As participants, surveys that are precise are a lot easier.
Yeah, clear. I totally understand. Okay, thank you for that. Thanks, Peter. Does anybody else have anything you want to share about the Valley, about opportunities in the Valley? Okay, so maybe with that, Robin, I want to thank everybody for joining. Keep your eye out on that webpage for updates on the project. And thank you for participating. And with that, I'll ask Robin to stop recording.